everybody, it's Ashley with Ashley Says So, and yes, I know I have on a ridiculous wig, but believe me, the way my hair looking right now is even more ridiculous than this doggone wig. So we about to work with it. It is what it is. Also, thank y'all so much. The people that sent me Cash App gifts, I really appreciate that. I do want to let y'all know that last night I sent some of my stuff in for review and some of it got approved. So we somewhat there, not all the way, but somewhat. But if you want to donate, continue, please. But I just like to let folks know, because when people gift you stuff, I feel like you should be honest with them about what's going on. So anyways, let's go ahead and get to this next old Hollywood scandal. This is going to be a scandal on the life of Mr. Joe Tex. Let's get to it. Joseph Arrington Jr. was born in Rogers, Texas in Bell County. His father was Joseph Arrington Sr. and his mother was Sherry Sue Arrington. Joe and his sister Mary Sue were initially raised by their grandmother because their parents had divorced and their mother moved to Baytown, and their father, I suppose, just didn't want to take care of them on his own. He had a thing for playing the baritone saxophone, but eventually he moved on to start singing in his local Pentecostal church. And after he started singing, honey, he found out he had a knack for it. And he went ahead and did a whole bunch of talent shows, won them. And then he was invited to New York to perform at the Apollo. He won at the Apollo 4 times. And this got him a record deal with King Records. He recorded several songs with King Records, but he could not find success. When his label mate, Little Willie John, found success with the song Fever, Joe started telling everybody that he wrote that song and he sold it to King Records because he couldn't pay his rent. But as far as I know, this claim was never backed up, so I guess nobody knows if that's true or not. And if you ain't never heard Little Willie John sing Fever, then baby, you missing out, because I know the main version that they put out was Peggy Lee's, but Peggy Lee wish that she can sing that song like Little Willie John. It's in the description. And yes, Little Willie John is on the list, because I know some of y'all in the comments. Now, here's a little fun bit of info. When Fever did become a hit for Little Willie John, Joe Tex recorded a response song called Pneumonia. But, I guess folks were scared they was going to catch pneumonia if they listened to it, because it didn't go nowhere. But see, now, if you're assuming things might have been a little funky between Little Willie John and Joe Tex, you couldn't be more wrong. Because, see, he had a bigger, badder label mate at King Records that got on his nerves real bad. And that bigger person was James Brown. Now, James and Joe came out around the same time. And like I said, they're on the same record label. And James Brown didn't have a lot of hits, but he was doing better than Joe Tex. But I tell you what Joe Tex was a master on. That was his stage presence. Baby, he was cold as ice. He had all the kicks, the slides, the splits, and throwing the mic and everything. The same thing James Brown had. And because James Brown did have these moves, Joe Tex really didn't get the shine that he was looking for. And a lot of people, including Joe Tex, he was the loudest one to say it, was whispering that James Brown stole Joe Tex's moves. Little Richard even said this. But James, of course, denied it. But that didn't stop Joe Tex from continuously running his mouth and telling everybody that James stole his moves. And this started a long-running feud between the two musicians. Now, let me tell y'all the actual kickoff point to this long-running feud. Apparently, Joe and James either performed at the same club, just a little juke joint. They were either performing or they were just there, period. But James got in front of everybody and was like, hey, Joe Tex, come on, man, let's have a dance battle. Since he's saying I stole your moves, come on, let's have a dance battle. And honey, I don't know who won the dance battle or even if they did the dance battle. But I do know that after this night, oh, it was on and popping between Joe and James. And now I'm about to add a little bit of say-so up in here. Y'all like that? Say-so? I just made that up. It means my point of view. But anyways, I'm about to add some say-so. Now, y'all can feel how y'all want to feel about this situation, but I'm going to tell you the way I feel. I feel like after Joe Tex wouldn't shut up saying James stole his moves, that James became enraged and was like, you know what, brother? I'm finna be picking with you. I think James made it his sole mission to pick with Joe Tex from here on out. And he was like, all right, you think I stole your dance moves? Don't worry about it. I'm about to steal everything else too. And I say this because soon Joe Tex recorded a song called Baby You're Right. The song flopped, did not do well on the charts at all. But then James Brown, messy tail, took the same song and re-recorded it a year later. Now, he did change some of the words and change some of the music, but it still was Joe Tex's song. So anyways, James Brown takes the song and makes it a hit. And doing this, James Brown was not only trying to prove that he was the better singer and performer, he also now was getting writing credits along with Joe Tex. He wouldn't have got nothing if he sung that song exactly the way Joe Tex did. But Al said, I'm going to do you one better and change the words so he can make money off this man's song. I mean, just basically saying, hey, Joe, thank you for your hard work. Because, yeah, you laid the foundation. You did the groundwork, but I took it to the finish line. So thank you, brother. I mean, y'all just messy. And then James got even dirtier and grimier than that. You see, Joe Tex had a woman named B. Ford. Now, some folks say wife, some folks say girlfriend. Now, B was probably a bad mother, but I don't think she was 100% in her heart, y'all. Because, see, she was with Joe. But then James started rising, and B looked over there, and she went over there. She left Joe Tex to be with James Brown. And I mean, think of this. So if Joe was telling the truth, now James has stole his dance moves, he done stole his song, and then he done took the man woman. Shiesty, 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 baby. But if you think this is shiesty and you think it can't get no worse than this, baby, you are dead wrong. Because James took this woman and rolled her around a bit, had her mind all gone. He even had her recording on a record with him called You've Got the Power. Yeah, I know if we was a fly on the wall in Joe Tex's house, I know this all we would have seen. Y'all know when folks be punching the air, because they mad. I know Joe Tex was doing that, honey, because James know he was wrong, but James wasn't finished, baby. He had to push Joe's face down in the mud. He had to let him know that he came for the wrong one when he came for James Brown. Joe had to regret every word he said. So James go get his little pen, honey, and get his paper and sit down and start writing his letter, and he just, with your bad self, with your bad self. Okay, I don't know if he did that, but I imagine he did. But anyways, he did end up writing a letter to Joe Tex. The letter says something to the effect of, all right, I'm done with her now. You can have her back. The burn. Y'all feel that? James is burning Joe Tex, telling him, I done got your woman. I stole her. I done what I wanted to do with her. And she was singing on my record. And now you can have her back. Take her. I don't want her. And when Joe gets it, he's pretty much like, okay, wait, hold on. Pause. You're doing too much, James. Like, for real. Like, now you're coming after my ego, my pride. Like, I can't let this slide. You didn't have to send that letter to me, so now I got to respond to you. So now Joe Tex goes to get his pen and his paper, and he just sitting there writing, you know, and the longer he write, he just so enraged. The only thing that's going through his mind, don't do me, sir. Don't do me, sir. That's the only thing going through Joe's mind. So he writing it, and, you know, he reading it back, and then he get to singing it back, and then while he's singing it, he gets a bright idea. So he says, I'm not about to write no letter. You see, James, you had me up from the start. Your little game been fun and all, and yeah, you hurt me. You threw some shots. But see, where you messed up at is that you did all this privately. The world don't know what you've been doing to me. But see, sir, I'm about to do you one better. I'm about to release a song so the whole world can know that I'm dissing you, James Brown. Baby, next thing you know, all you heard on the radio was, James, I got your letter. Or something like, I can't sing it like Joe Tex, but if you go look up the song, which I'm going to put it in the description, Joe Tex wrote a diss song to James Brown. Yes, put it out for the world to see. Embarrass James Brown so bad. Because the song was called You Keep Her. In the song, he's saying all this stuff about how he fixed B. Ford up. Like how he got her to be the woman that she was, and then he sent her on her way. So basically, like, James, first of all, you already got my leftovers. That's first of all. Second of all, you trying to give her back? No, sir. You keep her. You keep her. And that's what the song is about. I can only imagine James Brown's face when he heard the first two words, baby. Child, that's probably the moment that James Brown pompadour changed into that little Chinese lady hairstyle he used to be wearing. That's probably the moment when it happened, baby. He was probably so hot, so mad. The gel melted right from his head, baby. When he woke up, he had a hairstyle like this. Woo! James was mad. So, child, James slicked his hair back up into the pompadour real quick. He kept his cool, but he was like, it's okay. You know, we gonna see each other, so it's cool. And they definitely saw each other again. Now, let me go ahead and say that everything I have described so far happened between 1959 and 1961. And then 1962 comes around, honey. Joe Tex is at a little juke joint in Macon, Georgia. And Joe Tex, who's already known for like talking about people and imitating them, not in a good way, he's already known for this behavior. Well, he has the nerve to come out on that stage with an old raggedy cape on, y'all. It got holes in it and everything. And he's walking out like he's James Brown. So he imitating James, all right? Then he does the famous drop that James does. But when Joe gets down there, he starts saying, oh, my back. And he starts rolling all over the floor, his feet caught up in the holes in the cape. And he like, oh, please, somebody help me. Then he busts out and say, please, get me out of this cape. Somebody help me, get me out of this cape, you know. The whole club is laughing now. Everybody is laughing. And now the story has two different versions. One version says that James was not in the club and somebody called him and told him what was going on. But the other version says that James was in the club. He was in the club and he was in the back and he was just like, you know, okay, you want to be funny? I believe the version that James was in the club and he was standing back there and he was like, okay, you know, you want to be funny? All y'all folks laughing, that's cool. But the people in the crowd, they didn't have no idea what was going on, at least not all of them. Because if they did, they would have got up out of there when James Brown left out of the club. But they didn't. So James leaves and go back to the hotel or wherever he was staying, who knows. But he picks up something and then he turns back around and goes back to the club. And when he got there, baby, he got up out that car and opened their trunk. And everybody who was in the parking lot or outside, I'm pretty sure they took off running. Because James pulled out a shotgun. And I imagine that James Brown came and bow, kicked down the juke joint door. Who, you got a problem? Who got a problem? I imagine he said that and then he started blasting, baby. But the crazy part about it is by the time James got back to the club and started shooting, Joe Tex wasn't even on stage no more. Otis Redding was up there. And he probably was sitting up there talking about, these arms of mine, pow, pow, pow. Child, Otis ducked behind that piano, baby, and everybody was dodging for cover in that juke joint. But see, while James thought he was all big and bad shooting his shotgun, what he didn't know is somebody else in the club had a gun that night. And they started shooting back at his tail. And I believe it took a little while for James to realize that he wasn't the only one with the gun, because, you know, he just blasting off shots. But, baby, when he realized it, y'all pretty much know what I'm finna say. He took his little tail and got up out of there. The whole situation is just ridiculous. But what makes it more ridiculous is that Joe Tex missed this whole thing. And people in his camp try to say it was because he had already left, like actually left the club and wasn't there anymore. Because they was trying to say basically like, oh no, because if Joe was still there, like it wouldn't have been like that. Like if Joe was there, James wouldn't have been doing all that. But other people that were there that night said that Joe Tex was still there, but he ran out the door as soon as James bust in with them guns. That's why he missed the scene. And the thing about it is, Joe, you ain't got to be trying to act hard, child. Who cares if you ran from a gun? I'm glad you ran from a gun. And anybody else out there, I don't care how hard you is. If somebody pull out a gun, please run. Shoot, ain't no facing off with no gun. Now, it is said 7 people were injured in that shooting. And they all were paid $100 each to keep their mouth shut. Paid by somebody in James Brown's camp. After this whole crazy gun battle scene, things kind of cooled between Joe Tex and James Brown. But Joe still couldn't let it fully go. So when people started calling James Brown Soul Brother #1 or James Brown gave himself that name, Joe Tex once again going around telling anybody who would listen that James Brown didn't deserve that title. He said if y'all was going to give anybody that title, it should have been Little Willie John. And when he felt like that wasn't causing enough ruckus, he took it one step further and started calling himself the new Soul Brother #1. As a matter of fact, he had it painted on his tour bus. However, I did hear that once James Brown heard about it, somebody called Joe Tex and told him that James heard about it, and he removed it from his tour bus. And even if it was because James called, I don't think that meant that Joe Tex was shaking in his boots because James called. I think maybe it was because of a legal action that could have been taken against him. And he wasn't trying to pay no money, honey. Now, to me, Joe Tex should have left the James Brown situation completely alone a long time ago. Actually, they both should have. But when he actually did, like, leave it behind, in 1964, he had a hit record. It went to #1, and it was called Hold What You Got. And if I'm not mistaken, it was either #1 for 11 weeks or it was at #1 and it dropped down, but it stayed on the charts for 11 weeks. And shoot, that was a big deal. But Joe Tex could not follow up this hit with anything. Like, he never charted again. And I believe it was because of his gimmicky music. Like, he always had like gimmicks. Like, his songs was always talking about somebody, you know, calling folks bald-headed, nappy-headed, long skinny legs, big fat woman. And that might be okay for one song or something. But like, if that's what most of your songs are based on, women get tired of hearing that they big and fat. Women get tired of hearing they bald-headed and stuff. They might laugh it off at first, but I'm tired of you calling me fat, brother. It got so bad that people started calling him the Clown Prince of Soul or Clown Prince of Entertainment, something like that. But he was the Clown Prince. But I'm not for sure if his gimmicky ways stopped his success. That right there was just my opinion. However, I do believe that him sitting there and watching James grow and grow and grow kind of took some feeling out of him, kind of took some spirit out of him. Because like I said before, if it is true that this man stole his moves, then can you imagine somebody stealing your stuff and taking it and like being very successful with it? Like, yeah, that would burn you up. And then I'm sure it burned him up even more when he tried to basically get James' attention, probably to give himself a little bit of clout. And I hate to say that, but it's probably true. He probably tried to ride James' name a little bit. So he came out and was like, you know, James, let's see who the real soul brother is, you know, doing interviews. And everybody like, ooh. I don't know what James did. First, he didn't do anything. He basically acted like Joe Tex wasn't even worth his time or response. You know, like Joe wasn't even on his radar. You know how folks get. And then when he did respond, he gonna say something like, you know, I'm just not gonna fight another brother. You know, I hear him talking. He's all about that black on black, but I'm not about that. You know, all brothers need help. Don't try to take the high and mighty road after you just sat here and done this man wrong this whole time like this. Like, James, don't do that. Don't do me. Don't do Joe. Don't do everybody watching this video. James Brown. Don't do us, sir. Now, I do believe that during this time, they did have like a few more shots to each other, or I don't know if it was earlier, but I know they did take some more shots in their song. And James said in his song, Money Won't Change You, I think that's the name of it. Anyways, he had a line in there where he was like, money won't change you, Joe, but I'll take you out. Payback. And then Joe had something in one of his songs. I'm not sure what the name of the song is, but allegedly he said something like, you better hold on, James, because I don't play. I'll go upside your head. So, you know, they had a few more shots, but nothing big. Sadly, Joe Tex never skyrocketed to where he could have been and probably where he should have been. Joe Tex seemingly found comfort in Islam, and in 1966, his new name was Yusuf Aziz. He also had 2 daughters, Eartha Doucette and Leslie Arrington, and 4 sons. Joseph Arrington III, Ramadan Aziz, Juadi Aziz, and Joseph Aziz. Now, supposedly, Joe Tex lived most of his life free from drugs and alcohol. He was always sober, teetotaler. But in the last 4 years of his life, he suffered a horrific addiction to drugs. And according to his longtime friend and producer, Buddy Killen, Joe Tex had really just lost his will to live. And he said he looked very unwell and very skinny and gaunt. In the end, which was August of 1982, Joe Tex was found at his home, face down in his swimming pool. But someone rescued him and he was revived at the hospital. After he was revived, he was sent home. But he ended up dying of a heart attack only a few days later. And his actual death date was only 5 days after his 47th birthday. So this is the end of the old Hollywood scandalous tale on the life of Joe Tex. And oh yeah. So anyways, that post, I made it by my cell phone. I know some of y'all saw it, but all of y'all didn't. But y'all know I wasn't making that post so you guys can raise any money for me to get a cell phone. Child, baby, no. Listen, let me tell y'all something. I'm very direct. So if I want something or need something, I'm going to just tell y'all. Like, I'm going to just make a video and be like, hey, guys, I'm having trouble with money to get this, and that. Can you guys please help me raise money for this? Or something like that. Like, I'm not going to beat around the bush. Like, that ain't my personality. Y'all ain't got to worry about me, like, wording things in secret and code and stuff. Like, I don't do none of that. I come to you directly. I'll make a video and be like, hey, guys, I really need some money if you guys can help me for this, and that. So, yeah, don't ever think, like, when I post stuff, I mainly do it because I feel like y'all would laugh because it's something that I laughed at. So please, y'all, don't feel like you have to do that unless I directly ask you or tell you, and you still don't have to, but I'm saying that's when, you guys can give or whatever. But no, you guys don't have to do anything like that. That don't mean that y'all don't need to all pool y'all money together one day and surprise me with something. Like, that don't mean that y'all can still do that, just on your own time, just whenever y'all want to. All right, bye, y'all. I love y'all.